and welcome back to How to Get Better at World of Warships. This is episode 6, and today we're going to be talking about what kinds of shell types should you use in what kinds of scenarios. This is about as simple as I can get this sort of whole thing down to right now. It's a little bit more complicated than it used to be, but it is still, a lot of the old rules still kind of apply. Anyways, first things first, if you're playing a battleship, the first question you ask is, do I overmatch stuff? If, for example, your Yamato Musashi can overmatch 32, you're going to be using AP a lot, right? If you are a Republic and Kremlin, and let's say you can overmatch, let's say, heavy cruiser center plating, which is 30mm center plating, of course, if you run into those ships, you're going to be using AP. If, however, you are, let's say, playing a Bismarck and you run into a Baltimore and the Baltimore is angled correctly, your 380s can't overmatch, in which case you might want to consider alternative shell types, for example, like high explosive. Of course, as a battleship, if the target is fully broadside, then yes, use your AP. If the ship is like turning and about to give you that broadside, be a little patient. Wait until you're going to get that broadside before you fire. Finally, remember that battleship armor piercing, when you hit destroyers, except for Harugumo and Khabarovsk, which will still do full penetration damage, but if you hit like most of the destroyers, you're going to get overpen damage, which is 10% of your maximum AP shell damage. Remember, it is still consistent damage, so you can still use AP against destroyers. Don't just be like, oh, I see a destroyer, now I'm going to spend the whole cycle reloading to HE. Of course, in the situation for high explosive, let's say you don't have overmatch, target is angled in a way your AP doesn't work, fire HE. Also, if you're in a situation where, hey, there's not many ships left and maybe one of those is a destroyer and know that destroyer is nearby, you can also prepare the HE as well. Finally, of course, SAP currently doesn't exist for battleships, so don't worry about it. If you're playing the UK battleships, the same rule for armor piercing for regular battleships apply. If you overmatch, use AP. If you get broadside, use AP. If you're playing Hood and Duke of York with their improved autobounce angles, you will also be using AP a little bit more than you would with the regular British battleships. One further ship to keep in mind, Warspite doesn't really have anything spectacular going on the HE side. So with Warspite, because she's got the overmatch at tier 6 and the good accuracy, you can also use a lot of AP with Warspite. However, for the majority of UK battleships, high explosive is the way to go. You press 1, load HE, and you will do pretty well with just firing that ammo type. Again, no such thing as SAP. Stalingrad. Okay, so Stalingrad follows the battleship armor piercing rule, although you don't have a lot of overmatch. However, Stalingrad does have improved auto bounce angles, very, very good ballistics, so you can get those shells downrange in a real hurry. Great penetration, so oftentimes AP will be Stalingrad's default ammo type. However, if you run into a very stubbornly bow-on ship, then yes, go ahead, switch to HE and go for that. Forget SAP. The SAP there is most of a joke column when we're talking about these battleships and supercruisers, but of course when we get to the actual heavy cruisers, there's going to be a column there for the Italian cruisers. We'll get to that. Kronstadt, however, remember, Kronstadt doesn't have the improved auto bounce angles. Her ballistics are still pretty good, her penetration is still pretty good. So again, normal BB AP rules, you're going to be primarily still loading a lot of AP, but again, you're going to run into stubborn things that are angled in a way that you can't penetrate, so use HE then. Alright, if you're playing Alaska or Puerto Rico, first question you ask yourself is, do I overmatch? And of course, if yes, you fire AP, but again, with the supercruisers, there's not a lot of things you overmatch, right? So do keep that in mind. Anyhow, with Alaska and Puerto Rico, you do have US cruiser improved auto bounce angles, so you do use a lot of AP. However, your penetration is a little bit weaker, so on broadside targets, you're aiming for the upper belt armor, and also if you're shooting at targets sort of further away, you're going to be aiming a little bit high, trying to get the shells to drop on the deck, because there is a good chance of you getting penetrations that way as well. However, with Alaska and Puerto Rico, don't be afraid to switch to HE. If you're having a ship that is, giving you that kind of stubborn angle, HE away. With Alaska and Puerto Rico's pretty solid reload, you're going to be able to get some decent numbers of fires to get going there. Azuma and Yoshino. Okay, so yes, you follow the sort of the standard battleship AP rule, but IG and supercruisers tend to be fragile. So you only tend to really use AP in the later stages of the game, where it is sort of easier for you to maneuver onto ships' flanks and use your AP then. As for Azuma Yoshino, the majority of the game, you are slinging HE. I mean, time to start singing You Are a Flamethrower. And yeah, your AP is, it's usable, but it's more late game, while your HE is the universal ammo. And of course, yeah, you laugh at those people that have to use SAP. It's not very good. Okay, so next up we're talking about the heavy cruisers, and there's sort of a little bit of interesting things to talk about there. So heavy cruisers in most cases don't overmatch a lot of ships. I think only Henry IV has the ability to overmatch lower tier UK cruiser battles. So most cases your AP is going to be reserved for broadside targets. However, make sure that you are aware of what kinds of penetration performance your guns have. Again, you can consult earlier episodes of the series to figure out how to do that. There's a resource there for you on proships.ru. Anyhow, so do also keep in mind, for example, USN does have improved autobounce angles, but not great pen. So again, you want to probably be a little bit closer before you're going to that armor piercing shells. Of course, if you're a ship like Moskva, then even a little bit further away, your AP can still do good if you get broadside targets. The universal shell type for the majority of heavy cruisers is actually high explosive. You're just going to be using a lot of it because high explosive get penetration damage against 32 millimeters armor. If you're the German heavy cruisers, you get quarter pen, so you can do a little bit more there. So, go for it. And you also don't have to worry about SAP because, hey, in your opinion, HE is probably going to be better because you get fires and all that. However, if you play Italian heavy cruisers, you might disagree there because, and here's the reason why, right? First of all, Italian heavy cruisers, if you're using AP, you're going to be using it against broadside targets. Ideal sort of versus battleship upper belt, again, closer distances for that, and also against broadside cruiser citadels, again, slightly closer distances. You don't have HE to speak of because you have the better ammo type, that is SAP. SAP for Italian heavy cruisers is the near universal ammo type. You can shoot for areas that you can penetrate, which means that if you're shooting battleships or whatever, you might be targeting superstructure upper belt, depending on how much armor is where. You have to do some studying for the Italian heavy cruisers to sort of where you can actually do penetration. And of course, you absolutely go out there and you clap small boats because that is what Italian heavy cruisers do. Finally, light cruisers. So light cruisers, you basically only use AP during close range broadside, and you're kind of in the oh crap moment, something stumbled in there and you're trying to get maximum damage out against a broadside target, AP. In most cases with light cruisers, HE is the universal shell type because, again, with IFHE, that allows you to pen and set fires, and you got a lot of DACA going for you. Finally, British light cruisers, too bad you only have AP, so just fire that. Okay. Moving up, and we've got the destroyer category. And destroyers, you got to keep in mind, there's a couple of things to keep in mind, which is that the Russian destroyers, for example, with their 130 millimeters, higher tier French destroyers, and Smolensk, those kinds of ships, their guns are pretty good. So you do oftentimes will use sort of AP, but generally like sub 10 kilometers, right? At least you can engage things at around that 10 kilometer mark. And you can get that very, very sweet AP pen damage. In the case of the French high tier destroyers, for example, there's ways when you're playing those ships to load AP, sneak up, and assassinate. Let's say ships like Minotaur or whatever, like thinly armored light cruisers, you can get in there, tap their citadels. And of course, with the higher tier French destroyers, you also have that main battery reload booster, which can hurt things very, very quickly. Generally speaking, though, even for these ships, HE is your primary ammo type. There's a lot of DACAing if you're playing, the Russian destroyers and stuff like that. Of course, if you're Smolensk, then, well, it's not just DACA, it is just a chain of DACAs altogether. Okay, and of course, you believe in the superiority of HE over SAP. However, for the majority of other destroyers in the game, generally speaking, you're only using AP against very close range broadside targets, and I have to specify that these broadside targets will generally be slightly heavier armored. In most cases, you're not using them against destroyers because you'll get overpen and not very much good damage. Use AP then. UK destroyers, you can make the argument because they have improved autobounce angles that you can use it against destroyers because of the improved autobounce, the armor thickness increases, which can fuse their shells and give you penetration. But it's kind of marginal. Very, very close range against heavier armor targets, AP. And we're talking like sub 5 kilometers kind of close. Again, the majority of cases, you're pew-pewing with HE. No SAP to speak of. And finally, we're talking about a ship like, let's say, Atlanta. Atlanta, AP, generally speaking, no, unless you're in that, 5 kilometer range, very, very close target. In which case, you're probably using AP if you want that nice chunk of penetration damage. You're probably also going for those torpedoes. So, you know, majority of times with Atlanta, you're hiding behind islands, hitting the 1 button, and docking the crap out of everything with HE. And once again, no SAP to speak of. So that is pretty much a generalized guide about what kinds of ammo type you're going to be using when you're playing different kinds of ships. If you have any questions about this, of course, leave those in the comment section below. I'll try my best to answer your particular specific ships, exactly, because this is still an overall general type of guide. So from all that, folks, take care. Have yourselves a good one. Stay tuned for more of this series. The next videos up should be about, oh, guess what? Carriers.